It is Wednesday, February 7th, and I am here with your geopolitical news. Al Jazeera reports Israel's war on Gaza live. Israel, no license to dehumanize in Gaza. U.S. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tells Tel Aviv press conference Israelis were dehumanized in the most horrific way on October 7th, and the hostages have been dehumanized every day since. But that cannot be a license to dehumanize others. Blinken expressed optimism over a truce deal potential, saying Hamas' response has some non-starters but left space for agreement to be reached. You know what I think about this is that it's kind of all hypocritical. You know, maybe you are right to say that what happened on October 7th was dehumanizing. You might very well be correct in that condemnation. But what I find hypocritical is for you to say that Israel cannot dehumanize in retaliation. They cannot turn around and begin to dehumanize the Palestinians, which they've already been doing. But what I find interesting about the Secretary of State's commentary, and once again, the conspiracy theory is this is an election year and certain American politicians and different, members of government are going to walk back their support for certain individuals, certain countries. So I find it interesting that the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, will use this commentary, but at the same time, very well knowing that our president just bypassed Congress to ensure that a weapons package, military aid, emergency military aid, quote unquote, is sent to Israel. And so on one hand, it's almost like you're saying, don't do this and don't do that. But on the other hand, you're providing all of the support for them to continue the atrocities that they're conducting in Palestine. Let me know what you think about this. Is this hypocritical for him to be making statements like this now when you very well know what Israel is doing in Palestine? Right now, I'm on a YouTube platform. The Times and the Sunday Times posts a video. Hamas video shows intense fight with Israel in Gaza. So it's like, what are we seeing? Right now, look like people in the bushes just shooting or whatever, engaging in some type of conflict. We actually don't know where this is. Now, we assume we know where it's at because they're showing us some type of conflict being engaged, look like a bulldozer or a tank just uh, blew through a house or something like that. But that structure didn't look like it was very much stable or able to withstand anything like that. But as I said, this video is only a minute long and it's really not showing, where exactly or specifically this conflict, this this fight or this battle is happening at. And so this is supposedly a video that was released by Hamas, but you know, I'm starting to question and to wonder about the authenticity and the validity of not just it being a video of Hamas, but where this video was actually taken. And so these are the things that we as a people have to analyze and have to cover and connect the dots ourselves to see where we stand and how we feel about what it is that we're seeing. And so as I said, it's really not much to see here. And so, you know, like I said, it appears to be Gaza. I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of destruction. The buildings and the infrastructure seems to be very much damaged. So maybe, maybe not. What do you think? In other geopolitical news, Al Jazeera reports Russia hits targets across Ukraine in massive missile drone strikes. Deadly early morning attacks hit Kyiv and other cities, killing at least three civilians. Russia fired cruise and ballistic missiles and Shahed-type drones at targets across Ukraine, killing at least three civilians and injuring more than 10 people, Ukrainian authorities said. Russia targeted at least three big cities, according to the Ukrainian military, which said it intercepted 44 drones and missiles of the 64 that were launched. So, what am I supposed to think about this? Well, the drones are coming from Iran. And so Russia and Iran have a very unique relationship. And so I've been saying the same thing about the Russian-Ukraine conflict since the beginning. I believe has no, there's no victory for Ukraine in this situation. Now, as I just mentioned, the drones, I believe, are coming from Iran because Russia has a relationship with Iran. And so that should open your eyes and let you in on what is at stake on a larger scale. You see, in a conflict with the United States and Iran, I believe that Russia ultimately will get involved because Iran has been helping Russia in the conflict with Ukraine. And so, if you pay attention to these things, although they seem to be so far apart, these countries and in these different regions are so far apart and so abroad from each other. But at the same time, on a geopolitical scale, these things are very much connected. And so, as I said before, Russia is completely destroying Ukraine. The death toll inside of Ukraine is continuing to rise, and no one knows the actual numbers, the actual figures. There's estimates, just like there's estimates in the conflict that's going on between Israel and Palestine. But these estimates can't be taken seriously. For anyone that has a smidgen of intelligence, you would know that the estimate is very much inaccurate. With all of this destruction and everything that's been going on to the infrastructure, the buildings, and all of the damages and the rubble, underneath it, there lies another horror. The remains of the civilians underneath the destruction and the rubble is another horror all within itself. In other geopolitical news, I'm on the X platform formerly known as Twitter. Democracy Now! Posts Palestinians seek refuge in cemeteries as Israel threatens to invade Rafah. Seeking refuge in cemeteries. So now, from what I could see in this picture, as I'm pretty sure many of you are, are observing this photo, looks like tents are set up around what appears to be a grave site. And it's a very disgusting and disturbing photo to realize that human beings on planet Earth are being subject to such a heinous, brutal reality is very disturbing. In other geopolitical news, keeping it on the X platform formerly known as Twitter, Tucker Carlson posts why I'm interviewing Vladimir Putin. Let's check out what Tucker Carlson has to say about why he's in Moscow about to interview Vladimir Putin.
We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways.
And that is 100% true. We should know because American tax dollars are being sent in a form of military aid to different regions around the world because there's different conflicts that's going on. And one of them is the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
They might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. It's left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and has depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the law.
And an entire generation of dead Ukrainians. Do you know what a generation is? I don't even know what a generation is or what that estimate would amount to. But an entire generation of Ukrainians, it it sounds very, very very hopeless.
Long term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy. The post World War II economic order, a system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast. And along with it, the dominant.
And so the sanctions that were imposed on Russia, and not just Russia, you know, United States has a habit of imposing sanctions on countries that they're opposed to. But these sanctions, they they in turn become detrimental, not just to the world, but to American citizens as well. The economy suffers because these sanctions hurts the world economy when countries can't trade with each other because this country is being sanctioned. But you very well need the goods that this country is selling.
Of the US dollar. These are not small changes, they are history altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has.
You know, if you ask the people in the Middle East what the future looks like, I can only I can only imagine that most of their answers outside of the fact that they have faith in a higher power. So the answers will be coupled with what they believe in their higher power, and what that will result in them having. But outside of that, if it's about what they see in the future as it relates to what humanity will do, well, that's an entirely different story.
Really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission.
And so, you know, what is the point of turning on your local news media outlet only to know or only to find out that more than half of the program that you just received and digested was lies? It was fake news. And you know, people such as myself are becoming more and more a serious target. Now, as we sit here and we're consuming Tucker Carlson, who we all know is very well a target. I mean, look at what he's doing. He's in Moscow, he's in Russia, and he's about to interview Vladimir Putin. He's set to interview Vladimir Putin, knowing very well that the authorities in the United States of America highly frown upon this. He knows this very well, and he knows that this very well may cause issues for him. And this is essentially what I'm getting at. People like myself, Tucker Carlson, and I don't mean by no means to put myself on his level or in his category, but I mean that in the realm of free press. People such as us are becoming targets because of the way that we are consuming information and the way that we are determined to report the news. It's in some cases, especially if you leave it up to the military industrial complex and the United States government, well, what they will say is the sharing of certain pieces of information is very well a threat to national security. And this will always be the scapegoat, so to say. This will always be the lie that's thrown in to just to blow things out of proportion, to make things way more enormous than they actually are.
For example, since the day the war in Ukraine began, American media outlets have spoken to scores of people from Ukraine, and they've done scores of interviews with Ukrainian President Zelensky. We ourselves have put in a request for an interview with Zelensky. We hope he accepts. But the interviews he's already done in the United States are not traditional interviews.
Now you see that's funny. You won't do an interview with Tucker Carlson, but you'll do interviews with so many other news media outlets. But these other news media outlets that you're doing interviews with, you've been directed to do these interviews with because you know that the questions will be more in line with the answers that you're going to give, or maybe the answers that you've been directed to give.
They are fawning pep sessions specifically designed to amplify Zelensky's demand that the U.S. enter more deeply into a war in Eastern Europe and pay for it. That is not journalism. It is government propaganda. Propaganda of the ugliest kind, the kind that kills people. At the same time, our politicians and media outlets have been doing this, promoting a foreign leader like these new consumer.
Definitely propaganda that ultimately will have people killed. And to keep doing such a thing when you very well know that the news that you're spreading will cause reactions from humanity of a violent nature, to keep doing such a thing, it only speaks to the diabolical nature of the powers that be.
Brand. Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. We've never heard his voice. That's wrong.
You know, most of the the ideology that's spread throughout not just social media, but through the news media outlets, most of the ideology that's spread throughout it is, as it relates to the adversaries of the United States of America, these people are deemed to be evil. These people are deemed to be terroristic. These people are deemed to be not just dictators, but they are deemed to be people of a certain nature when it's when the viewpoint of the United States of America is being held up. And so very, very few times do you hear any news media outlet or any of the such stating that they're going to interview someone who is adversarial to the United States of America. And I can only gather that that is because the United States of America does not want any information that speaks against it to be made public, especially on a major news media outlet.
Oh, Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have the right to tell them about it because we are Americans too. Freedom of speech is our birthright. We were born with the right to say what we believe. That right cannot be taken away no matter who is in the White House. But they're trying anyway. Almost 3 years ago, the Biden administration illegally spied on our text messages and then leaked contents to their servants in the news media. They did this in order to stop a Putin interview that we were planning. Last month, we're pretty certain they did exactly the same thing once again. But this time, we came to Moscow anyway. We are not here because we love Vladimir Putin. We are here because we love the United States. And we want it to remain prosperous and free. We paid for this trip ourselves.
You know, I don't know necessarily that I believe that part, but if Tucker said it, then you know, I guess I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he actually does love America.
No money from any government or group, nor are we charging people to see the interview. It is not behind a paywall. Anyone can watch the entire thing, shot live to tape and unedited, on our website, tuckercarlson.com. Elon Musk, to his great credit, has promised not to suppress or block this interview once we post it on his platform, X, and we're grateful for that. Western governments, by contrast, will certainly do their best to censor this video on other less principled platforms because that's what they do.
So they'll definitely censor the video. I will definitely be covering this interview and I will be dissecting this interview piece by piece, word for word. If I cover the interview live, then obviously I can't do that. But I will be doing a reaction video to the interview of Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia.
They are afraid of information they can't control. But you have no reason to be afraid of it. We are not encouraging you to agree with what Putin may say in this interview, but we are urging you to watch it. You should know as much as you can. And then, like a free citizen and not a slave, you can decide for yourself. Thanks.
Follow Street Icon on all social media platforms. That's Street Icon 1 on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. I don't know if you guys seen this, but this is Street Icon Podcast Conspiracy Theory Series merchandise. As you can see in the photo, this right here is a sweatsuit, top and bottom. You see the Street Icon logo in the form of an American flag. So this merchandise will be available soon. You can scan the QR code, and the QR code, the scan will take you directly to the YouTube platform, Street Icon Conspiracy Theories series channel, where you can check out all the latest in geopolitical news and current events. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about these situations. Did you know about them? Drop a comment in the comment section, and always remember, stay vigilant, stay safe. Peace.